So one of the most common questions we get in the SHAR repair shop is, how do I know when it's time for me to get my bow rehaired? The most general advice we can give is that we typically advise people to have your bow rehaired every 6 to 12 months, depending on how often and how aggressively the player is using the bow. However, today I want to go over a few other obvious signs that it's time to have your bow rehaired. So probably the most common sign that it's time to have your bow rehaired is that the hair has stretched past the point of any kind of comfortable playing tension. All right, so this is a freshly rehaired new bow, and you can see in this bow, in the loosest position, that the hair is kind of gently resting on the side of the bow there. This bow is one where the hair has stretched well beyond where it should be. You can see that the hair in this case is hanging far below the stick. And one of the problems that can arise, other than playability, having the hair stretched out that far can actually also cause additional problems for the bow. As you can see, that bow, the frog of the bow, the black part here, as you tighten the screw, it's moving backwards in this channel, which we call the mortise. However, eventually, once the hair stretches to a certain point, that eyelet reaches the back of the mortise, and there's no place left for the bow to be tightened. And what happens is that if you continue to tighten and tighten and tighten, either you will strip out the threads on the screw or on the eyelet, or even in the worst case scenario, crack the frog or crack the mortise. So that's probably the most important sign you want to keep in mind when considering whether or not it's time to have the bow rehaired. Anytime that hair starts to stretch beyond the side of the bow there, time to get the bow rehaired. So a second sign then that it's time to have the bow rehaired is that you're just simply missing too much of the hair. Over time, and particularly if a player is playing really aggressively or playing aggressive pieces, what happens is some of the hair, typically on the sides, begins to break off, and you get some of these straggling hairs, both at the bottom here at the frog and at the tip. And you'll notice, in comparison to a new bow or a freshly rehaired bow, you can see that in this case the hair just isn't extending from one side of the ferrule on the frog to the other. You're losing hair, and with that you're losing contact on the strings, and again, time to have the bow rehaired. And the last sign that I want to talk about today that indicates it's time to have the bow rehaired is simply the buildup of dirt, grime, oil, and sweat on the hair of the bow. Typically, that's most commonly indicated down here in the thumb section where the thumb is resting on the strings. Usually there's a band of kind of dark, grimy material here. To a certain extent, you can mitigate this by wiping down the bow after playing. But if this continues, ultimately the oil that's building up on the strings is going to keep the hair from actually accepting rosin, and you're going to have some playability problems that go along with that. So again, any one of these signs or any combination of them is a pretty good indication that it's time to have your bow rehaired. And I'll just end by saying, having a well-haired bow is incredibly important, not only for the playability of your instrument, but also for maintaining the longevity of your bow. So you want to keep this in mind, and also keep in mind that we're here at the repair shop, always available to answer any additional questions that you might have about this. Thank you.